This symposium brings together key thinkers from a variety of disciplines to consider the appropriate tools, methodologies, and resources for digital scholarship, curatorial work, and pedagogy. We hope that today's presentations and conversations will also reveal future directions in the fields of art history and digital humanities, so that research centers and archives like ours can prepare digital resources to address new research trends and questions. The success of new ventures in digital humanities depends on collaborations between archivists, scholars, teachers, students, and IT specialists. As such, digital art history has the potential to change the way we work. And one important goal of today's symposium is to encourage new partnerships across these fields. We are especially grateful to today's sponsor, the Terra Foundation for American Art, which generously supported today's meeting and since 2005 has funded the digitization program at the archives. Their leadership and support has enabled us to build an incredible digital resource of primary sources on American art, a resource that's growing every day. I'm pleased to recognize Francesca Rose from the Terra Foundation's Paris office, who's here with us today. Welcome, Francesca, and thank you, Terra. We're eager to learn from you and think with you today, whether you're here with us in the auditorium or joining us on the web via Ustream. We're webcasting the proceedings live, and the recordings will be on our website for future viewing. Diane Zorek will also be preparing a report of the key findings, and that too will be available on our website, so we hope you'll come back and revisit what we've learned today. Finally, I want to thank Dr. Kelly Quinn, the Archives Terra Foundation Project Manager for Online Scholarly and Educational Initiatives, and Mary Savig, our Curator of Manuscripts, who organized today's symposium. Thanks, Kelly and Mary. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Liza Kirwin, Deputy Director at the Archives. Liza was the person on our staff who first identified the need to convene a meeting on digital art history in 2012. So I'd like to turn the podium over to her to say a few words about the inspiration for today's symposium and what we hope to achieve. Liza?
Thank you, and good morning. The idea for this symposium began in May 2012 when we first read Diane Zorek's report to the Samuel H. Kress Foundation and the Roy Rosenzweig Center for History and New Media at George Mason University, Transitioning to a Digital World, Art History, its Research Centers, and Digital Scholarship. If you haven't read it, it's available online and a fascinating study. It's not often that someone assesses art history research centers or the behavioral habits of art historians. After reading the report, I followed the footnotes, searching for examples of the digital frontier. What does it really look like? What are the successful models in art history, and particularly American art, that will help us imagine new ways of thinking? Recent activities such as NYU's Symposium on Digital Art History, that camp at CAA, and the upcoming Digital Humanities Summer Institute for Art Historians to be held at George Mason University with support from the Getty Foundation suggest a growing interest in all things digital. Both the Association of Research Institutes in Art History and the Archives of American Art recently established prizes for online publishing. And the e-journal 19th Century Art Worldwide has begun a digital research and publication initiative with support from the Mellon Foundation. In fall 2014, the Association of Historians of American Art will launch a new e-journal, Panorama. This is a transitional moment in art history and in American art. At the Archives of American Art, with generous and sustained support from the Terra Foundation, we've transformed the archives for the 21st century, creating an unparalleled virtual repository for the study of the visual arts in the United States. Our efforts to explore, develop, and implement innovative approaches has provided free online access to 2 million digital files, a vast cross-section of the archive's primary sources, and set a new standard for excellence in the archival profession. With the digital turn, it's an exciting time to come back to the archives with new questions and projects. But we need to hear from you and learn what we need to do to provide digital resources in a form that is most useful. How do we anticipate new methods of inquiry and questions not yet asked? What if we could search hundreds of 19th century diaries in a matter of seconds and visualize information in multiple patterns? Or map the social networks revealed through the records of the Leo Castelli Gallery? Or trace the lines of communication between the US and European art worlds in the early 20th century through thousands of letters? Or consider vernacular expressions in the 900 oral history transcripts now available online? What if the 20 million items of the Archives of American Art were available item by item in chronological order? Wouldn't that be a powerful way to encounter the American experience? Imagine the possibilities. The purpose of this symposium is to help us envision a digital future by presenting examples of successful projects in the field of American art. The speakers we selected have adopted digital tools that augment traditional art historical methods and contribute new knowledge to enduring questions. I especially want to thank Dr. Kelly Quinn, the Archives Terra Foundation Project Manager for Online Scholarly and Educational Initiatives, who took the lead in organizing this program, and I now turn it over to her. Thank you.
Thanks, Liza and Kate, and thanks to all of you for coming. I have a really long job title, but a brief description, and that is that I'm a matchmaker, and I try to match our scholarly resources and primary sources with teachers and students of American art history. And so it's a special thrill and pleasure today to have so many of you here, people who had only been Eventbrite statistics or correspondence via email. I have a couple of housekeeping assignments and tasks to take up first. We have toilet rooms in the back towards the lobby. Help yourselves as you need. We have a brisk pace for the day, and we're going to move quickly. Our speakers have been instructed that they have 20 minutes to present, and I will ruthlessly show a yellow sign when we're closing in, and then a red sign when it's time to stop, and then who knows what will happen. But when I go off script, it's really a bit much. Each speaker will present their work, and then at the end of each panel, we'll have questions from the audience. We do have people following along on Twitter, and we encourage that. Perhaps we'll also be fielding questions from the universe. And I'm certain our speakers will have responses for the universe. If you have questions and you're in this room, if you could please go to the microphones so that we can all hear your question, and just let your question be known. Mary Savig will be coming around with the microphones. We encourage the use of social media for the presentations for today. In your packets, if you received a packet, there's a green tweet sheet, and so for our speakers who have Twitter handles or hashtags for their projects, you will see them listed here. We have a Twitter handle for today, or a hashtag for today, and that is AAHDS, American Art History Digital Scholarship. We have been watching with quite a lot of excitement as Michelle Moryevec has been thinking out loud and writing her presentation in public with the hashtag AAHDS. Maybe you have been following that too. So we encourage you to use that. If you are going to be using your electronic devices, please silence your keyboards and ringers and on-off switches. We don't want to hear who let the dogs out as someone's talking about the post-war avant-garde art mark. I mean, I guess that's avant-garde in its own way, but not for us. So please use social media. We also encourage collaboration face-to-face, and we hope that you will meet folks here who are kindred spirits who can share best practices and expertise. To that end, we have some sheets out in the lobby where we have different digital tools and methods listed at the top, and then Post-it notes. If you are interested in joining an electronic conversation that will be facilitated by me on one of those topics or one of your choosing, you can feel free throughout the day to add your name to a Post-it note and put it on the block of paper. This will be a way for us to take a little sentiment, a temperature of the sentiment in the room about people's interest in data mining or data imaging, visual analysis, or teaching with digital sources. So please feel free to add to those blocks of paper throughout the course of the day. I'll remind you of that as it goes along. That may also be a chance for taking a page out of the book of our colleagues who prepare and run unconferences. You may also wish to meet at lunchtime with other people who are interested in talking about teaching. This will be on your own. It is a self-organized, completely voluntary, opt-in kind of session, but if you are interested in learning more about, say, for example, data mining, I would encourage you to cluster around that sheet of paper, and then you all could take off to a restaurant of your choice or go grab a sandwich at the Courtyard Cafe and eat upstairs in the courtyard and have a chat while you chew and think about your shared interest and expertise. I'll give more details about that at our next break. But first, it's my great pleasure to introduce our speakers for the first session. And while they share a common interest in what we're calling mapping images, I also think quite interestingly, they show for us very interesting models of collaboration between faculties and students, collaboration between individuals and institutions, and then thinking broadly about how we use digital tools. 3 remarkable presentations this morning that I think are asking and demonstrating the power of the uses of digital tools. So we have extensive speaker bios in the packets. I would encourage you to consult them if you would like to know where people took their degrees, but I will say just simply that Laura Wexler and Lauren Tilton will speak to us first. They have Twitter handles, and they will be presenting on the remarkable project that's in beta format now called Photogrammar. Maybe you two have looked at those photographs from the FSA OWI, and now we can see where they were taken on the map of the United States. David Sledge joins us today from Williams College. Isn't it thrilling to have somebody who's at the outset of his career as an art historian, thinking about where landscape painters worked in the 19th century? And then a really promising combination, really our only strong submission on how to do interesting, informed, rigorous work with images from Marian Mazzoni and Thomas Brady. I'm especially proud to have an undergraduate student and a seasoned senior scholar, the head of a department, speaking from the College of Charleston today on our program. To me, this is exactly what the Smithsonian should be doing, bringing people from different kinds of institutions for us all to think together. So we'll have Laura and Lauren, and then David, and then Thomas and Marianne present. They'll field questions, and then we'll have a conversation. Thanks so much. Laura and Lauren.
Okay, well, hello, good morning, and thank you very much. Thank you to the Smithsonian, thank you to the Terra Foundation, thank you to Kelly, thank you to everyone who's invited us here and made this occasion for us. We don't, as we just said, we don't have a lot of extra. Ooh. You can do this. Give me 1 second. Here you go. Okay. We don't have a lot of extra time, so I'm just going to start right away, maybe. Okay. Lauren and I are presenting the Photogrammar project, and I'm going to give you some background and some of our thinking about the project, and then Lauren is going to walk you through some of the things that the map that we have built can do. And I'm going to talk about 3 different things, really actually quite quickly. One is what is the FSA-OWI collection, for those of you that are not already familiar with it. One is to propose a couple of moments of theory, just some thoughts, meta thoughts about working in this way. And the third is to talk a little bit about the importance of the team, which is something that Kelly has already raised. So the Farm Security Administration Office of War Information photograph collection made an extensive pictorial record of American life between 1935 and 1944. Roy Stryker, who's a former economics professor at Columbia University, basically headed the project for most of the time. And out of that project came work that I'm sure you're familiar with by Walker Evans, Dorothea Lange, Russell Lee, Arthur Rothstein, Ben Shahn, Jack Delano, Marion Post-Walcott, Gordon Parks, John Vachon, Carl Meidens, and actually many others. This was a project that initially was trying to document the good works that were done during the Depression by giving government cash loans to individual farmers by the Resettlement Administration. And then it expanded to study the lives of sharecroppers in the South and migrant agricultural workers. But as the United States went forward into the Depression, forward through the Depression and into World War II, the project expanded even more fully. And this is actually a map, the map that we have made of all the places where FSA photographs were taken. And the minute we put this on the map, we learned something that is not what generally scholars are saying, because the project is known as a project that's about the South or maybe about the Dust Bowl. But the minute you map it, what do you see? Well, there's Maine. You know, I mean, it was incredible. Simply to map it taught us something new. Okay. And then after Pearl Harbor, the FSA became this portrait of America that it had been taking in order really to provide support for New Deal policies, became a portrait of the people of the United States, the home front, and their capacity to fight the war. So it was always an arm of the government propaganda, but its purpose actually shifted after Pearl Harbor. That's really important because it's not the only mass photography project of its time. We've forgotten some of the others. There was a worker photography movement all across Europe and some parts of Asia and in the United States, in which factory workers, the industrial class, were given cameras and taught to photograph their own lives, and they were making their own self-portrait of working class life. There was the Photo League, which was, again, inspired by the kind of more radical worker photography movement. And they were a group of people starting also right when the FSA started in 1936, who were documenting their own lives in cities. They were recent immigrants, they were working class, and they were documenting their own lives in cities. In England, there was the Mass Observation Project, which is is still going on today, actually. Again, the people producing their own photographs. So, and it's important to understand that the FSA was expert photographers taking pictures of the people, sending their photographs back to Washington, and Washington was using those photographs. Our idea of what the Depression looked like generally follows what the FSA showed us. And that's an important theoretical point I want to make about the project. The project is a simulacrum of the United States. It's a copy of the United States. It's a copy, in fact, the word simulacrum means a copy that doesn't have an original. And yet we have taken the FSA portrait as an authentic picture of the United States. Well, in some ways it is, and in some ways it isn't. And the Photogrammar project, for me as a scholar, is an incredibly incisive tool for the public to start to analyze in what ways this is an authentic picture and in what ways it needs to be amended or augmented. So that's really what I want to say about the theory, that it's a copy, that it doesn't actually have an authentic original. It was made for a purpose. And the idea is to get the public involved in rethinking that copy. So the really crucial part of this was the team. We put together an interdisciplinary team. It had a statistician, a GIS mapping specialist, an academic technologist, a specialist in big data visualization, a graduate student who had done work in museums and is extremely interested in public humanities, and a professor who's a historian of photography. That's the team. And we've been working basically for 3 years, meeting roughly speaking once a week, if not more, to make the map that Lauren will demonstrate to you today. We've now built this tool, and we're at the point of excitedly thinking of new things that we can do with this tool. I want to emphasize a little bit about the statistician. Because everyone was key to this project, but a statistician who is able to think visually is, if you're making interdisciplinary, if you're going to do this and work in the digital humanities and art history, if you can have this, you're very lucky. Statisticians know numbers. They have a sense of numbers. They're trained to know numbers. They know how to get all of the numbers in a situation. They know how to scrape and clean metadata. They know how to see patterns and meaning in groups of numbers. But even more than that, there's a certain instinct here that I'll give you a brief example of. The 170,000 photographs in the FSA archive were originally sorted by a man named Paul Vanderbilt. And there were, and Lauren will show you about his categories, but there were numbers there that didn't make sense. When we asked about those numbers, we were just told, oh, those numbers don't make sense. But our statistician, Taylor Arnold, said, no, wait a minute, it's really interesting here. A number that doesn't make sense. I'm really interested in that. And that was one of the most important things that he did. He also was able to work with visual information, which is very unusual for a statistician. These are photographs with metadata attached that he was able to work with. So I commend these two parts of the project to you. As principal investigator, I have understood my biggest job to make this team understand it's a team, it's an interdisciplinary effort, and that we work together. Let me introduce Lauren now.
And thank you to the organizers. Such a wonderful event. I'm going to dig a little deeper now and show you what we've been working on over the last several years and where we're headed as well. As you can see here, this was actually the initial idea was, well, let's map it and see what happens. And as Laura said, immediately begin to start to shift the scholarly questions and our assumptions about this corpus. And we think that we're really just at the beginning of that. What one can do here is if you hit the dot button that I've preloaded because it's a little bit of time here, you see here actually begin to see the actual photographers when you click on dots. And by doing that, you actually get to start to see the trips of the different photographers. As you start to see here, we actually are starting to see Jack Delano moving across Route 66. And on top of that, if you start to layer it with historical maps, we can actually start to see closer and closer that he really is on there. And just by mapping it, we're actually now beginning to track the photographers, follow them across the country over time. And for scholars of photography, there's incredibly exciting to be able to see their line of vision, see where they're headed and what they're up to. And we're actually just beginning to do some of that. And if you zoom in even further, you'll start to see, this is actually the pre-Eisenhower highway system as well. And we're working on several types of layers of maps for this kind of project to open up different types of information. This is actually a gas station map from from 37. And as you can see here, you can actually start tracking him along and up and around. We think that this just opens up copious amounts of questions and exciting forms of scholarship. In addition, we have started on the map, go back to the map here, we can then go and click in on particular counties. This is by density, by number of photographs in the area, so you can actually also get a visual representation of the number of photographs in a particular place. This could be really interesting for, one question that sort of always interests me is, you know, why this county? What's in this county? Why so many photographs here, right? What's up there? And we can start to begin to explore those kind of questions as well. So, in addition, one can now go click, so let's say we want to go to Maine, and we want to go to Cumberland, Maine. There's 43 photographs here. Well, I can load that up, and we can start to see the photographs. And my new current favorite photograph is the Hermit of Maine. He's playing with his unique instrument, a combination of 2 organs and a piano. And he has a sign, he's enjoying himself. And if you then click on the photograph, we can actually start to get the metadata about him. And thanks to the Library of Congress right now, they're actually rescanning all these images at archival TIFFs. We are working closely with them, and really special thanks to the Prints and Photographs collection there, who's been a real asset and a partner in a lot of ways in this project, and been incredibly thankful for their support. And you actually start to see a bunch more information about him. One, we have our photographer, our date, and these are all clickable. You can go click on Paul Carter, you can click on March 1937, the location. And then there's these 2 things. What is classification and lot number? What is that? Well, in 1942, Paul Vanderbilt joined the FSAOWI and created his own archival system for the collection. There were 60,000 prints. People in the government were like, how do we find anything? How is this helpful? There's so many. Help us. And he created 2 systems. One is this hierarchical system. The classification starts with people as such, a subgroup is groups and individuals, and then if you're really interested, you can find middle-aged men. In addition, we have our lot numbers. 12, 13, these tend to be shooting assignments, a series of photographs in the same place by the same photographer. That's not always true, right? It's never that easy, right? But it tends to be true. And we've actually been able to maintain the 1940s archival system and build that in. And for historians as well, you know, this has a whole number of series of questions. Why that system? Why these basically, this is our 1940s tagging system. Why those tags? Why that hierarchy? Why this photo? So let me show you the photo next door to it. Let me click on another image of him. He's actually a different set of classifications. He's social and personal activity, entertainment, music. Wait, 2 photographs of the same person, 2 different classification systems. What's going on here? Wait, why? So we start to be able to, you know, I don't know the answer yet. I hope you'll help us. But these are sort of questions that we can begin to engage in as well. In addition, one can just go to the search option as well, do a full text search as well as by these different systems as well, classification tags. Let's say for those, particularly one of our most famous in the corpus, Dorothea Lange, we can start to pull up all of her images and begin to look at her more collectively and see all this large corpus that she has, over 3,900 photographs. What else did she take? What else was she interested in as well? In addition, we are looking at several other ways. I'm going to come back to our browse button here, where we're actually making visualizations as well about these different systems. So, for example, here is the classification system. And you can actually begin to say, here's the top level categories. So let's look at social and personal activity. You click in, we're going to a subcategory as well. Let's say we're interested in ceremonies and organized gatherings, and these are based on proportion of photographs as well in there. And we can look at, say, ceremonies and click through and get a collection of ceremonies during that period as well. The Norwegian Independence Day. So As well, we have another set of visualizations here as well, the dendrogram that does a sort of a tree. And we're playing with sort of different ways to visualize this data as well. Browse is becoming a really fun kind of, I wouldn't say kind of a toy section in some way, of areas where we can think of different visualizations and ways that really offer new ways to access beyond just the map and the search function. Another feature on here is we're starting to go into actual image analysis. And this is browse by color. And you see here, actually, this is really early. We're just playing right now, so a little sneak preview here. But this is our color space that we've been working with Ben Schmidt at Northeastern, as well as Peter Leonard, our DH librarian, and have you can now actually begin to look at it by different color variables. And so here we have hue, and here we have saturation. And this is just the color corpus. And suddenly we start to get it out by blue, yellows, greens, red, yellow, green, blue, and then you go back around. And we're playing with different ways to look at color. We're not sure yet what exactly that means, but hey, put it out there and see what happens. Because we sort of also run by the philosophy that sometimes actually someone else is going to think of the best way to use your data, the best way to play with it. They're going to come up with something entirely cool, right? And that is a part of it as well. That someone else might come along and say, hey, guess what I see? And that's another aspect of some of what we're up to. In addition, we are, apologize, kind of scanning quickly here. We're looking at doing text analysis on the corpus based by caption, that you'll be able to start actually getting similar photos by different topics. So let's say you're interested in trucks, you know, you can actually start to find different photos by the same photographer about trucks and maybe other photographers. This might be a case for churches, might be the case for different kinds of signs you might be interested in, different maybe, you know, so any of these kind of pieces. So this is another way of searching the corpus that we're exploring as well, and sort of, it's not up yet, but we're getting really excited about. And the last piece is the strips. And this will be, I think, really, will be interesting. It's not up yet, but will be interesting for not just users, but actually maybe archivists as well on the back end. What we, this is coming back to our patterns. Our statistician saw this M4 number on the back of the call number and said, M4, wait, I saw an M3 before, and I saw an M2 somewhere else. Wait, there's something there. And there's something that we had looked at, I don't know, maybe it's just some internal system, patterns. He saw it, and he said, I think there's something here. And he realized that M1, M2, M3, M4, M5 was a strip. It was a whole pattern in the data that allowed us to start recreating strips of photographs. And not only can you do that by us looking at it as scholars or the public, or people who are interested, can take these different strips and look at them and start to put them together. So here's John Vachon's trip. We can literally travel with him through Kenosha. Cheese, cheese, cheese. Wait, stop, cheese. It's kind of funny, right? Who knew? John Vachon. If you've read his letters, it may be a little less of a surprise, but and then, but interesting, it gets very serious. The next shot is Chicago. And this is someone, here's all this abundance of cheese, and here's someone who's down on their luck, right? Suddenly his tone shifts really, really quickly. Not only we see it thematic, we can see how he frames his shots, his bracketing, we can start to see a whole nother world of John Vachon. And this, if, in addition, what it allows us to do as well, let's say frame 1 says John Vachon, let's say on the top, frame 1 says John Vachon, frame 2 says unknown, frame 3 says John Vachon. By knowing it's together, we can put the data back in. We can say it's John Vachon, we can tell you when, we can tell you where, because we know it's bracketed by the other two images because of how people did their negatives. And this actually opens up a whole nother layer, we think, tons of new data for this archive as well that we're going to share back with the Library of Congress. So we'll have Laura, one quick word, and then I think we'll be done.
So right after 9/11, I was part of a group of scholars that went to the Smithsonian, that went to the Library of Congress, and we were let loose in the filing system. The idea was that there would be more masterpieces that haven't yet been seen. It's impossible to go through 170,000 photographs and find what we now can search and easily find. That's what's so incredibly exciting. This is a beloved archive, and now it's going to be made mobile for people to search in really unimaginable new ways. Thank you.